welcome back. Well, yesterday afternoon, to be precise, it was a meeting between the All Progressives Congress and the private sector in Lagos. And as we had seen the report earlier, we saw some of the faces of APC coming from Abuja to meet with Lagos and talking to the business people in Lagos to convince them that APC is still the way to go, both in Lagos and at the national level. Well, to help us drill down on some of those promises and their plans, we have the Honorable Commissioner for Economic Planning and Budget in Lagos State, Mr. Samuel Igube, came into the studio. Thank you for stopping by.
Thank you very much, Ini. Yeah, my pleasure being here all the time.
Good to have you. So I guess you would say it was a successful meeting yesterday, but what did you tell those guys? Those business people are very difficult to convince. What did you tell them? What are you promising them?
Well, the business people know us in Lagos. They know the party, they know the history of leadership that we have shown in Lagos, and they are the biggest partners of the development of Lagos. So basically, we're meeting them. They control significant amount of the economy, and so we're meeting them to tell them about the leverage which partnerships can bring, and that partnerships around which we have together developed Lagos. We're talking to them and making commitments around what we thought leadership of Lagos should look like and the character of what a true leader of Lagos should look like, because they feel the pinch, they have the experience, they manage their risks, and so it was an opportunity also to share that perspective with them, but it was also an opportunity to talk about the progress that Lagos was making and the progress that Lagos and potentially the Federation can make if we have the right connection between the idea of the rising Lagos and the renewed hope agenda. Both at the center and as Lagos as a state, the whole idea of leverage that should come around if there's a proper connection between the Lagos state operation and business ideas and economic ideas, and that will be happening at the center. So it was an opportunity to parade some of the brightest and best out of Lagos. So
yeah,
that
we
Lagos
saw that. We saw the Minister of Works, we saw the DG of Budgets. I mean, just showing off your great arsenals.
Well, it looks like the great arsenals from Lagos, but it's actually assets for Nigeria. And those were people that were groomed out of Lagos, people that we brought in from the private sector. So they were with their former colleagues, and we're demonstrating also to the people that we can get more of that happen at the federal government position if we just make the right choices at this time. We showed them developments that have happened both at the federal level and at the Lagos level, and the great things that Lagos celebrate today being a partnership between Lagos having a direct congruence with the manifest presence of what was happening in the federal government positions.
Yeah, well, obviously you do have a great partnership, because I think, as the governor noted yesterday, about 70% of the headquarters of corporates that are in Nigeria reside in Lagos, are headquartered in Lagos. So you get a bunch of the tax, but you also have the huge responsibility. As we noted, some of them did talk about the issue of infrastructure. I know the governor talked about the plan to connect the transport model, to make it intermodal. So you have the water and all of that. But I mean, businesses are feeling the pinch, as you also noted. For instance, we had Dr. Bankole from the Lagos Business School, who said, I mean, they spend about 5 hours in traffic. That is time that you cannot recover or pay for. You know, so it becomes a desperate need, you know, for it to be dealt with. And I mean, I think the government is trying to develop Lagos as the Ekpe area and all of that, as the new Lagos.
So I will tell you, it's part of the idea around that progress is being made significantly, and we need to focus on the progress that is being made, right, and make our choices based on those progress, because you must press through the pain to get the great ideas that we're about. So if you look at the Ekpe Expressway, for example, we've turned that place to a 6-lane highway. reinforced concrete from Eleko all the way to Ekpe Junction, and we have now flagged off phase 2 from Eleko Junction to Abraham Adesanya. We are commissioning the 4th mainland bridge, which will take us out from Ajah all the way to the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway. So it's a lot of infrastructure that is going on. That is the biggest corridor happening along that axis. We have a deep sea port, which is going to be like 3 times the capacity of our Apapa port, and the economic activity that will present, right? We talked about the approval of the Badagry on the west side, the 10-lane Badagry road on the right, on the west side, and the blue line running through that artery, the red line, which is where again you see the partnership between Lagos and the federal government. It will be impossible to do the red line from Agbado all the way to Oyingbo without a partnership. In fact, during the time of Fashola, that was what prevented it. Today, with that partnership, Lagos is able to save 384 billion and is able to deliver a brand new rail, the red line, all the way, and it will cut down journey time from 2.5 hours to 30 minutes, increasing the productivity of our people. It's also in that line, the integrated transport master plan is being deployed. We are delivering on the ferries, on the waterways. We are creating 18 new jetties, 7 of which have been completed, channels on the waterways, and integrating all of that with our bus rapid transport corridors, our quality corridors, our last mile buses, and heavy capacity buses. All of these play together to ameliorate what Bankole was talking about. With the regional road increasing the capacity of the Lekki Expressway and running parallel to it, just becomes a game changer. But again, you must see that it is happening because of the caliber of leadership that we have in Lagos, which we believe should also go to the federal government. We are looking at around young people that are in cabinet in Lagos, running the parastatal. We're looking at the inclusion of women, driving some of our biggest infrastructure. The rail MD is a woman in charge of Lamata, is a woman also driving works and infrastructure.
Politicians, they never miss a chance. They never miss a chance to push it out there and campaign.
It's to say that leadership requires a lot of inclusion, and Lagos is master of it. And that is the opportunity that we're discussing yesterday, and the private sector wants that goes into the federal position, and let there be active integration between the private sector in Lagos and the federation. And
Commissioner,
let them
you have done a very good work, but let me also bring another concern. Mrs. Taiwo talked about the issue of maintenance.
Okay.
So if we look around in Nigeria, we celebrate a lot of things when they start, but down the line, a couple of years down the line, we don't see them anymore because they seem that we do not pay attention to maintenance. What's the maintenance plan? The blue rail that the president came to commission, we're expecting, of course, the second phase that will lead to Okokomaiko. I mean, all the beautiful ideas you've talked about. The 4th mainland bridge, we're watching you guys. The governor said at least before, as in for the second term, I believe.
I mean, we'll see it. We'll see it progress significantly
because it's been a long-term dream.
So maintenance is a very interesting component of the plan. So when you see the Lekki Deep Sea Port going into operation, it is private sector led, which is why this partnership is significant, which is why in Lagos we say Ajimoshe when we say Igbega Ikpile Eko, right? It is a collective work and we're doing that really well. So you see CMA of France leading the arsenal in terms of world-class operators of that port. The amount of equipment and capacity we've put there that qualifies it to be able to run 3 times the capacity of Apapa shows that the partnership between the private sector and government is working. When we talk about the Niger Bridge, again, it is this sovereign wealth fund working around investments, right, that is making that work. So that partnership works. We're talking about concessions, right? We're talking about the blue line, the red line. They will eventually go into concessions. You talk about even our strategy in ensuring that equipping the healthcare systems in Lagos work. It's a partnership. The private sector are very well grounded in ensuring that the investments of their assets continue to run. In the Fed, you find out that the finance Ministry of Finance Incorporated has been activated with a governing council, and we'll put all our assets there. And active asset management is part of what speaks to maintenance longevity. So we are on course, right? With the maintenance idea being at the forefront. And of course, you need great minds. You need people who have learned and have been trained around this whole idea of maintenance, right, that are coming into play. So in terms of leadership, it's not just one leader. It's the aggregation of leading lights that that leader is able to produce that we intend to birth for the Federation and assure that that maintenance culture that is growing in Lagos, and you see in Lagos rising, will begin to get into the culture in the Federation and across the country as well.
I'm just curious, is it part of when you sign agreement at the beginning with this private sector, do you also include the clause that takes care of the maintenance of it?
There are very clear service level agreements that we arrive at in the concession agreements. There are clear parameters that must be met by the private sector when they come in. And apart from those parameters, it's also inherent in the private sector that to reduce the amount of investment in repair work, you must ensure your maintenance culture is on point. Otherwise, when the calamity comes, you will spend probably 10 times the amount. So it is in the private sector naturally to keep maintaining so that their efficiency at which they run is sustained throughout the life of the assets. So all of that are tied in the concession agreements that we're entering into and will continue
that's very interesting and very necessary, because it's been a weak point for Nigeria. Now, the final thing I'd like to ask you, Mr. Egbe, is we've had a lot of japa, and that has affected us in reality. Some of the failed transactions we have on our financial banks and all of that is because the personnel, that used to handle it have looked for greener pastures. Of course, they want more comforts, where a system is more predictable and all of that. But how do we recover from it, at least in Lagos State?
So in Lagos, right, we are acquainted with the whole idea of japa. The first thing that happens is that Nigerians japa into Lagos. That's their first point. And they do so because of the differential benefit and differential increase in infrastructure stock that you find in Lagos. I think the idea is that, like was said yesterday, people jackparing are not jackparing because of the food. They are not jackparing because of the climate or the temperature, right? But because of the infrastructure. So you see what His Excellency Mr. Fashola account he gave. We've increased the stock federally of infrastructure from 20% of GDP of the country to about 35%, right? And so we're moving on. And all the things that Mr. Governor talked about, the rail, the deep sea port, the media city, the food security and logistic base, and all of those infrastructure, 950 to 1,000 roads infrastructure, what we're doing in education, right? You can't stop people from going, but you can make it difficult, a choice for them to make once your infrastructure situation continues to improve. We build houses for our doctors. We pay for their examination fees, right, to become professionals. And we do all of that in Lagos. It's the reason why when there's a strike nationally in our tertiary institutions, the tertiary institutions for Lagos are not on strike, right? It's the reason why in our WAEC we're seeing an improvement in the pass rate, including maths and English, from about 31% to 80%, and it's repeated itself again, right? And that's all that we're doing to just encourage and ensure the system works. So as we grow the environment, we launch the rice mill. It creates opportunities for 250,000 people. We complete the deep sea port. It creates opportunity for 170,000 people. All of those things begin to encourage and reduce the burden on families and will make them stay. I talk to some of those that have jackpot, and they always want to come back to Lagos for Christmas. They want to come back to be happy and to enjoy themselves. So it's something that we must collaborate. So we have a very active diaspora network also that we engage, because as they go abroad and they expose themselves to new technology, new ways and fresh international capital, we need those capital to come back. Don't forget that diaspora remittances also contribute significantly to the revenues or the inflows that come into development of our country. So we need everything to work together. right? And so by acknowledging all that we have, the opportunities and the progress we're making, we make the correct decisions and we move our country forward.
All right,
that was
so
what yesterday was about.
How often do you have this talk, or is it just towards the election?
So Lagos State is home for the organized private sector. We meet them every time. They participated very actively in COVID. You saw that if it's for COVID only, you should elect the governor back. But he did not do it alone. He did it working together with the private sector. So we are constantly in touch. At Higbeti, we work together with the private sector, and it's a continuous play between us and the private sector. When we say Lagos is great, it's that partnership that makes it great. And so we will continue to hold it virtually. These are big stakeholders. They control a large size of employment stock in Lagos. And once they believe in us as they have believed now, we believe their people will also see reason.
All right, Mr. Sam Igube, the Commissioner for Economic Planning and Budget in Lagos State. Thank you so much. And well, we'll see the results of your meetings and your conversations at the polls.
We're seeing it already. We're feeling it already. We're thankful for the support of the people of Lagos and for the people of Nigeria in looking correctly in the right direction. And as we say it, follow who no road. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you.
All right, so that was the Honorable Commissioner for Economic Planning and Budget in Lagos, joining us to, elaborate on that meeting they had yesterday with the private sector and some of the high points of that.